I need you to stop what you are doing. Not scroll past, not half listen. Stop. Because what I'm about to say to you in the next 25 minutes is not a motivational speech. It is not a pep talk. It is not content designed to make you feel good for an hour and then forget you watched it. This is a word for the person who is tired. Not tired of life. Tired of waiting. Tired of trying. Tired of watching everyone around them move forward while they feel frozen in a season that was only supposed to last a year and somehow became 3 or 5 or 10. If that is you, I need you to hear this with every part of you that still believes. Not too old. Not too broken. Not too far behind. Not too many mistakes deep. Not too forgotten. The story God wrote for your life did not expire while you were in that waiting room. And the version of you that is sitting here right now, the one who has been through things they rarely talk about, that version is not the leftovers of who you were supposed to be. That version is exactly who God needs to step into what is coming next. Stay with me. Because where we are going in this message will change the lens through which you see every hard thing that has ever happened to you. Let me describe something to you. Tell me if this sounds familiar. You started out on fire. There was a time, maybe it was years ago, maybe a decade, when you had a picture in your mind of who you were going to become. You could see it. A calling, a purpose, a life that meant something. You prayed for it. You worked toward it. You told a few people about it and their eyes lit up because they could see it in you too. And then life happened. Not one dramatic disaster. Usually it is not that simple. It was the accumulation, the relationship that did not survive, the job that cut you loose right when you needed it most, the diagnosis that rearranged everything, the betrayal from someone who was supposed to be in your corner, the year you gave everything and received nothing in return. And slowly, without even realizing it was happening, the fire got quiet. I want to talk about 5 signs. 5 signs that you are not in a dead season. You are in a reset season. And most people miss them because they are looking for the wrong things. Sign number 5. Something brought you here today. Out of everything competing for your attention at this exact moment, the notifications, the news cycle, the demands of your schedule, something pulled you toward this message. And something in your chest is saying yes even while your mind is still deciding whether to believe it. That pull was not an algorithm. That pull was the hand of a God who knew that today, at this exact hour, you would need to hear exactly this. Some things are too specifically timed to be coincidence. If you recognize 3 or more of those signs, you are already in it. The reset has already started. You just needed someone to name what you have been living. Type "I am ready" in the comments right now, because what comes next will reframe everything. I want to show you something that most people miss about how God works. Because when you understand this pattern, you will never look at your hard seasons the same way again. Here is what no one tells you about growing things. The most important growth is the growth you cannot see. A farmer plants a seed in February. February in most of this country is dark and cold and entirely unremarkable. The field looks empty. Nothing is happening. Or so it appears. But underneath the soil, in that darkness, the seed is doing the most important work of its entire existence. It is becoming. The shell is breaking open. The root system is driving down deeper than the stalk will ever grow tall. It is building the foundation for everything visible that comes later. If you judge the field in February, you would declare it dead. You would walk away. You would say nothing is happening here and move on. But the farmer does not judge the field in February. The farmer knows what they planted. God knows what he planted in you. The promises he spoke over your life before you were old enough to carry them. The gifts he built into your design before the world had a chance to suppress them. The assignment he circled on your timeline before you had a name. He is not worried about February. He is thinking about the harvest. Your waiting season was not empty. Your waiting season was your February. And beloved, spring is coming. The field is not dead. The seed is just about to break the surface. I want to take you to one of the most radical stories in all of recorded history. Not because it is ancient, but because it is yours. Joseph was a young man with a dream. Not a vague aspiration, a vivid, undeniable vision of who he was going to become and the impact his life would have. And then everything that could go wrong went wrong. He was betrayed by the very people who should have believed in him most. He was falsely accused and wrongfully imprisoned. He was forgotten by someone he helped, left in a cell for 2 additional years after he had every reason to believe his moment had finally come. Pit, prison, palace, not in one smooth arc, in a jagged line that looked from the inside like pure chaos. But here is what Joseph understood at the end of the story that he could not have understood in the pit. Every hard thing that happened to him was precision engineering. The pit taught him to release the need for human approval. The prison taught him to serve faithfully in an assignment that felt beneath his calling. The betrayal taught him that his destiny was not in the hands of people. And every skill he developed in the dark, every character trait forged in the fire, was exactly what was required to carry the weight of the assignment waiting for him in the palace. Nothing was wasted. Not one day. Not one tear. Joseph said to his brothers, the ones who threw him in that pit, he said, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." That is not a coping mechanism. That is a revelation. A revelation that the narrative of your life is not being written by your circumstances. It is being written by a God who is working all things together. All things, including the things that hurt the most, toward a purpose so much larger than the pain. Your pit was not a punishment. Your pit was a preparation. Let me speak plainly about something that most people get wrong about how God works. God does not only move in the visible. His most sacred, most specific, most powerful work is done in the dark, in the sealed places, in the silent seasons, in the valleys that have no obvious exit. The resurrection was not a public event. It happened in a sealed tomb before a single human witness was present. The most significant thing that has ever happened in the history of the world, the moment that changed everything, happened in total silence and total darkness, with no audience. Your quiet season is not evidence that God has stepped away. It is evidence that He is doing something too sacred, too specific, and too powerful to be done in front of an audience. The things God builds in the dark do not need external validation, because they were never built for display. They were built for impact. Stop asking God to hurry up and start asking Him what He is building, because the answer will reframe the entire season. I need to speak now about who you actually are, not who your circumstances have convinced you that you are, not who your worst season labeled you, not who the person who walked out decided you were, who you actually are. Because here is the thing about hard seasons. They do not just test your faith. They attack your identity. And the attack is subtle. It comes dressed in logic. It comes wrapped in evidence. It builds a case using real events, real failures, real rejections, real disappointments, and then draws a false conclusion from true facts. The conclusion it draws is this: who you have been is who you will always be. That conclusion is a lie. God does not look at you and see a record of attempts and failures. He looks at you and sees the faith that kept getting back up after every one of them. He does not look at the years that felt wasted. He looks at the roots those years were growing underground in preparation for a harvest you could not yet see. He does not look at the relationships that fell apart. He looks at the love that kept showing up even when it cost more than it should have. He does not see someone who missed the moment. He sees someone whose real moment has not arrived yet, and is closer than it has ever been. The scripture says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." That is not poetic language. That is a statement of design. You were not assembled by accident. You were formed with intention, specific gifts, a specific assignment, a specific capacity to carry something the world needs that nobody else can carry in exactly the way you can carry it. The reason the ordinary path never fit you is not because you are broken. It is because you were never designed for ordinary. And every time life tried to compress you into a smaller version of yourself, every closed door, every rejection, every season of invisibility, was not evidence that you were less. It was evidence that you were other, set apart, running a different race on a different timeline toward a different finish line than the one the world offered you. There is a weight you have felt on your shoulders your entire life, a sense of responsibility that goes beyond what is logical, an ache to do something that matters, to leave something behind that outlasts you, to live in a way that makes a difference you can actually see and feel. That weight is not ego. That weight is calling. And calling was placed in you before you had the vocabulary to describe it, before you had the courage to claim it, before life had the opportunity to wound you into doubting it. The wound happened. I know it did. But the calling that was placed before the wound, it is still there. It was not canceled when you stumbled. It was not revoked when you walked away. It is there, right now, underneath everything, steady and patient, waiting for you to stop arguing with it and start walking toward it. And the most important thing I can tell you about stepping into that calling is this. You do not need to have it figured out first. You do not need to feel ready. You just need to be available. And the fact that you are here, still watching, still listening, still leaning in, tells me that you are. God does not give revelation without instruction. He does not show you the mountain without showing you the path. So let me give you something practical. 3 steps. Not a general to-do list. A 3-part protocol for stepping into the season that is already opening in your life. Step 1. Release the old narrative. The first assignment is the hardest one because it requires letting go of something you have held tightly for a very long time. The story you have been telling yourself about why your life looks the way it looks. The narrative that your delay was punishment. The narrative that God forgot or moved on or chose someone else. The narrative that the best years are behind you. The narrative that because something did not work the first time, the second time is not coming. Those narratives are occupying space in your spirit that belongs to the new thing He is building. You cannot pour new wine into old wineskins. You cannot receive a new identity while you are gripping the old one. Find 20 minutes this week. Get quiet. And speak out loud, not in performance, in conversation, what you are releasing. The bitterness toward the person who did not choose you. The grief over the version of your life you thought you would have by now. The identity that was assigned to you by someone else's limitations. Release does not mean pretending the pain was not real. It means refusing to let what was real in the past determine what is possible in the future. Step 2. Rebuild the foundation of your faith. Return. Not to religion, not to rules, to the version of your faith that was alive before life built armor around it. There was a time when you believed without conditions, when you prayed with expectation instead of resignation, when the promises felt personal instead of theoretical. That faith is not gone. It went underground. Because going underground is what faith does when it needs to survive a winter. But now the season is shifting. and the faith that went underground is looking for permission to resurface. Give it permission. Return to the scripture that carried you through the hardest night. Return to the prayer practice you abandoned when it stopped feeling productive. Return to the community of people who remind you that God is real and that He is working even when His work is invisible. Step 3. Move before you feel ready. This is the step that separates the people who receive the breakthrough from the people who talk about believing in it. Move forward before the sea parts. Walk toward the water before you can see the bottom. Make the phone call before you feel qualified. Start the thing before the funding is there. Have the conversation before you have the perfect words. Take the step before the fear is fully resolved. The Red Sea did not part so that Moses could believe. The Red Sea parted because Moses believed.